What up? What up? What up? Can I give myself a little bit round of applause?
You're exclusive.
I love them all. It's so hard to picture. So it's like trying to pick a child, a favorite child.
I also believe that everybody is special. And that's the thing, discovering what makes you special and different from everybody else.
So,
Whoa, that's $8 to $10 million a month.
it was more than that. It was a lot of money. And, we had a lot of perks. And I had over 300 gas stations that I operated.
Hello, Tom LeVecchia here with the New Theory Podcast. Today's guest, and I am unable to almost articulate the excitement I have for this next guest. Gary Illyes, who is a trends analyst for a small company called Google. And this guy, you know what? I'm just going to predict it right now, Gary. This conversation is going to be, I recognize what this guy for what he is and what he does, and he is just going to totally downplay it because that's the kind of guy he is, I can tell. But with that being said, Gary Illyes, welcome to the New Theory Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for having me. It's quite exciting for me as well to have to be on New Theory.
Thank you. And with that said, let's start. We want to learn who Gary is. So give us your formative years, and what makes you you.
Well, I have a short answer and I have a long answer.
It's your platform, Gary. We'll give you as much time as you need.
The long answer usually I give next to a few beers if we have any. So because we don't have any beers right now, you will get the short answer. The short answer is I'm a journalist by profession, but before becoming a journalist, I was many things, including a bartender, so I can pay for my college.
Love it.
I worked on construction sites. I did many things, but eventually I settled down as a journalist, and then I was publishing online for myself and also worked as a correspondent for a big agency that I will not name.
Okay.
And basically, I was deployed in areas of the world where there were interesting things happening, and I was just basically behind the scenes updating the internal databases on the situation in the respective zones or areas. And after that, or even during that, was already helping in the Google News help forum, mainly because I just couldn't. How to put this nicely?
No, this is a podcast. We are not. You can say what you want, and it's okay.
Yeah, I can just be quite nasty sometimes, and I try not to be.
Got it.
But, that's not a nice thing to do. Anyway, so basically, at one point, I had issues with my own site in Google News. We had multiple authors, and were just not showing up. And I posted in the Google News help forum, and I didn't get an answer even after 2 weeks. Multiple pings on the thread.
Oh wow!
And so on. And eventually, I figured it out. Basically, it was Google News. I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have a rule that you have to have at least 3 numbers in the URL. But this information was well hidden in the help center. And somehow I found it through a miracle or something, and updated my URLs, and suddenly my content started showing up. Well, not my content, my site's content started showing up in Google News, and I was super happy. But then I realized that there are many people on the Google News help forum who have similar problems, and then I started answering them. And then I learned more and more about Google News through the Help Center and by reading others' problems and figuring out on my own what could be what the resolution could be. And in many cases, I was right. So the Google News Help Forum staff, the Googlers, promoted me to something called top contributor.
Nice.
And basically, I got some limited access to the Google News employees through that, and I could ask limited number of questions from them. Basically, they could answer whatever they could in a more private form. But of course, my questions were all related to Google News publishers' issues. I didn't ask them like, tell me about the algorithm or anything like that.
How can my stuff rank better?
Yeah, exactly. And I was very active there. At one point, someone invited me. Well, actually, John Mueller invited me to Zurich just to hang out for a day or a few hours, actually.
Nice.
That was pretty exciting for me, and that was my first video call with back then Google News support stuff.
Nice.
It was super exciting for me.
Of course.
Then after a while, I don't know how John Miller asked me if I want to be a trans analyst, and I was like, well, I don't know, sure, we can try it. And then I became a trans analyst at Google. It's been, I don't know, 7.5 years ago.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay, again, you're downplaying it. Number one, did you shit when they offered you? Literally, did you shit? Because I would have shit.
So so it was interesting because like when John asked me, I was really excited. But after that, I kind of forgot about it because I was like, well, there's no way I will get in, and why would they want me? After I had the phone screens and the recruiter got back to me, telling me I had, I think, 3 phone screens, which is unusual.
Yeah.
Usually we do 2. Usually we do 1, and if something is not clear, then we do 2, but pretty much never 3. Okay. And I had 3, so that was like already a red flag for me. But the recruiter got back to me, and she was super excited, and she was like, well, we are flying you to Zurich again for the on-site interviews. And I'm like, that's not possible. I sucked at the interviews, at the phone screens. And she was like, well, apparently you didn't. So during the interviews, I was basically a non-believer, and I was not nervous at all because I knew that they wouldn't hire me. So I was just answering the questions. I had a few scary interviews with one of the by now director who asked me to design a search engine in 30 minutes.
Wow.
It was an interesting experience. And then I went back. Of course, I believed that I was a no-hire. And then in 2010, early November, I got a call from Zurich, from the recruiter that, okay, sit down, you're in. Wow. And I was like, are you sure? And she was like, well, yes, I'm very sure. Okay, well, I will believe it when I get the contract.
Wow.
And then they sent me the contract, and I put it on some shelf, and I forgot about it. And after like 2 weeks, the recruiter calls me again. It's like, what's up with the contract? I clearly remember this was a Friday. No, it was a Thursday. Because on Friday, the post office and UPS and DLH were all closed for some national holiday or whatever. So I wouldn't have been able to ship the contract back to Ireland. And I was like, well, honestly, I have problems with the contract. And,
oh, wow.
Okay, so you want to negotiate? I was obviously lying
with
because
Google, by the way. Okay.
basically I forgot about signing the contract.
Wow.
And she was like, okay, so what's the problem? And basically I couldn't think of anything. What can possibly be wrong with a Google contract? And I was like, well, you said that I would get free coffee at Google. And she was like, yes. And I'm like, okay, so that free coffee is not in the contract. And then like a long silence.
I can't.
And she's like, are you serious? And I'm like, I'm dead serious. And then she goes like, okay, well, okay. I will go back to HR or whatever and see if we can add something to the contract so you can be sure that you will have free coffee until you work at Google. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And I hung up. And then, of course, I signed a contract. And then I went to the nearest post office just to realize that it's closed. And also closed on Friday. And then Monday, first thing in the morning, I went to UPS and I sent the contract to Ireland. But like 2 hours later, the recruiter called me and she's like, Gary, look, I promise you, I swear that you are going to get coffee for life even, or at least until you work at Google for free. You don't have to pay anything. You can have as much coffee as you want. Just sign the damn contract and send it back if you're happy with the package, with the money and the stocks and whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, if you promise them, it's fine. I will send it today. And then she thanked me. She hung up. And then she was the first person I met in Zurich when I finally, on my start date. And she was like, you are insane. Were you serious about the coffee? And I'm like, no, I was lying. I was basically didn't sign a contract and I had to like win some time for myself. It's like, are you serious? You're insane.
That's great.
I'm sorry.
I love it. All right. So here's the part that's not super clear to me, and you can help before we get into some deeper dive. That's a great story, by the way. So, like in the past, Google kind of had a mouthpiece that said, "Hey, here's what's going on," and there was great YouTubes and all that kind of stuff. Whether or not it was transparent or whether or not it was right or wrong, there was like kind of a talking mouthpiece. Since that particular individual is no longer with the firm, it appears that they kind of decentralized that effort. But you kind of get sucked in to be that guy. So walk us through that. That's what I find funny because like you're brilliant and you're like I love you already. But like you kind of get sucked into all of it. Was that kind of by choice, or you just tend to be a little bit more forgiving or not forgiving? Like give us kind of how that transitioned.
Well, it was basically no one wanted to do it, and then I was like, okay, then I can do it. I was never excited about going to conferences, for example.
Yeah.
I don't mind talking to people. So, for example, now I'm in India and for 2-3 hours, SEOs from here, from Delhi and from Gurgaon and from the 1,000 kilometer away.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that. It gives me a new perspective. But I was never actually excited about going on stage and telling people what they should do or what they should focus on because it just feels weird. Basically, I don't feel that I'm the right person for that. I'm saying, but still, it's weird to me. And for example, at PopCon, usually I just sit down on the stage, on the edge of the stage, and try to level with the attendees because stand on a stage and everyone is looking at me. But yeah, it was by choice. well, it was a reader choice because no one else wanted to do it, so I said that do it. We do recognize that we should have presence at conferences, for example.
Yeah.
And also on YouTube and whatever. I don't have a family like John, for example.
Yeah.
So I can travel as much as I want, as I can.
Nice.
That's why I can go to the US whenever it makes sense to go to the US. Although nowadays I don't go that much to the US. But like, for example, now I'm going to Japan and to Australia just so the webmasters and SEOs and content creators feel that we are not neglecting them. We do want to listen to them. It's just those who represent Google, they are also humans who have families. They can't travel that much. And I feel that with this, that I go to conferences, to even remote places, I can ease that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to get into it because I know you're a super busy guy, but I have a lot of questions. So my first question is, and people try to be slick on how to ask him questions because there's certain things he can answer and certain things he just won't.
Oh,
so
I know. I have experience with that.
Just a little, right? So here's my first question. You and I are going to start a firm. So you respectfully, Google that stops giving you coffee. And you and I decide to start a firm. And we have $1 to invest, right? So there's two options. Option one, we're going to start a website, a blog site. Mm-hmm. And the option one is 2/3 of our dollar is going to go towards clean code, great developer, great SEO, technical, whatever you give us is going to be great. And then 1/3 on some great writers and maybe a videographer. Or vice versa, option number two. 2/3 of that money is going to go towards a great videographer, a great writer, a great, graphic designer who makes graphics. And 1/3 we may, cut corners, go on a Wix, whatever. Which of those structures would you start with if you and I started our company today, and why?
I would absolutely go with the second one. Basically, create the good content, create the exciting stuff, and use whatever platform you can to get that online.
Oh wow! Okay.
I don't believe in Okay, people will hate me for this, especially developers who care a lot about semantics.
Yeah.
But clean HTML, for example, or clean code doesn't matter for Google.
Ooh. Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. Basically, imagine that those who publish clean code, that put online clean code, they are the 1%. The 99% will throw out on the web all sorts of crappy code.
Got it.
So bad that sometimes even browsers can render it correctly.
Wow.
Why would on earth Google care about clean code? It doesn't make sense. When the 99% doesn't create clean code, then it shouldn't matter if your code is clean or not. The first thing that we do after crawling a particular page is to normalize the HTML, to tidy it up, to bring it to a level where we can extract the relevant information and be able to rank those better. And now I'm not talking about Flash, for example, because Flash is outdated. Don't use that. Or Silverlight. Even Microsoft is backing away from Silverlight, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Or it already did. But when we are talking about HTML and minimal JavaScript, then it absolutely doesn't matter. Do whatever you want. Put your awesome content online, and search engines in general will figure it out, including Google.
Okay. So you, and I know, and it's not as obvious as an answer as you think, because people say, yeah, build some great content and let it come. But there's a lot of people building great content, but still you'd rather invest in that. So let's just say, and I'm gonna personalize this a little bit. So I'm not a full SEO guy. I'm more of a media guy, and then I'll have SEO people on our team. And again, candidly, I'm trying to invest more in the content, and I'm trying to get off the SEO tit, and I'm a little scared to be honest with you. But if I after this podcast, I'm going to re-listen to it, and it'll give me some some strength. But my question is, I get a call from a client, say I'm the principal. I just Googled the term, and I'm now 3 verse 1. And you know the whole spiel, and I'm like, well, are you on incognito, or are you on a clean phone? And I'm doing my best to replicate it. But what I'm saying is, I know SEOs are technically not supposed to exist. We're supposed to all be in a harmonious land, building great content, right? But what would you do if you were now you're a CMO? You went onto the client side again because Google didn't give you your coffee. And you have a client complaining, right? It is when your stuff doesn't rank as well as you want it to, and this is give me 1 second on this. And let's assume you know what you're doing. Is it the strategy may be off, and you executed correctly, but your strategy may have been off in terms of keywords and intent, or if you're not ranking well, maybe your strategy was good, but your intent was off. Which is closer to the truth in 2018? I can't give it easy on Gary. I love you, but I got an audience here.
So the question is very loaded. I think that's my main problem with it. It's not. I don't think it's a hard question. It's more that it has multiple answers.
Correct.
One answer is that most of the things didn't change. How can you rank in Google?
Yeah.
If you were always using white hat techniques and you were not buying links and you were not doing stupid crap, then that should still work. The interesting part is that what most people don't realize is that ranking is not guaranteed, and ranking is largely based on how our raters perceive a site, not one particular site, but when we make algorithm changes, then we evaluate those changes using human evaluators. And that means a lot. Okay. Indirectly, that means that your site should be perceived as a high-quality, authoritative site by your users. And I run into this problem a lot, really a lot, where some site was hit by one of our algorithm updates, by the way, of which we do at least 2 per day.
Yeah, of course.
And they don't know what to do. Well, perhaps you were not as authoritative in your field as you thought you were. Perhaps you need to build up, you need to teach people that they can trust your content.
Okay.
That they can go to you as a source of information. Don't ever think that CNN was, for example, CNN was in a better position when they started off. They also had to build up their own reputation. They also had to work a lot on their own branding. It didn't happen overnight. And you could perhaps say that until that particular site was ranking better in Google search, perhaps it was ranking artificially. It shouldn't have ranked there.
So it may, because you guys are not we're all fallible, right? So maybe something may have ranked in the short term through a crack or crevice, but your algorithms are always updating, and it may have caught that, and then we'll reverse that. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, keep going because I have another.
My best suggestion is to work on branding. And I'm not saying buy AdWords because, well, for one, I don't even know how it works. Second, I don't believe in paying for search traffic.
You know the irony there, right? But keep going.
And I probably shouldn't have said that. I hope PR will not listen to this. Anyway, but I forgot what I wanted to say.
No. You want people to find you organically. You want people to find you in a true fashion.
I just remembered another point. Don't build your site on a single source of traffic. If you build your site on a single source of traffic, then you will have problems in the long term. If you, new social network comes up and you invest everything in that new social network, and to make sure that you get most of your traffic from that particular social network or search or other platform, and what they do anything to their algorithms, or they make some visibility changes on their platform or whatever, then you will lose your traffic. Don't ever think that it's a good idea to have only one source of traffic and trust that that source of traffic will be permanent. It's never permanent.
And that even goes in a way for Google too, right? Like if you are an SEO guy or gal, and you're relying just on organic traffic from Google, which maybe represents 70% of all traffic, you should still diversify anyway, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Whenever you don't diversify, you will be bitten in the long term.
Got it. So hedge your bets. Okay. Now, one of the hot topics is, links, and you made a comment saying people buying links, so which is a big no. So I know the obvious answer. We're like, if Gary Illyes started a podcast, that's the new theory, because I know I've seen you speak enough, and I've seen your writings. So here's the thing: how do we get links? And you are not allowed to say build good content. Like it's not like that sounds great, right? How can we get links exclusive of building good content?
So, in theory, I shouldn't say that you should build links. Practically, I will say that it doesn't make sense to not do white hat link building. Basically, you have to identify, well, first and foremost, links are a little overrated. We know of many high-quality sites that do really well on their leaf pages without having a single link to those leaf pages. And I know, or last time I was in Norway and gave a presentation there, or actually co-presented with an SEO. Nice. He was giving examples of how, for example, Porsche leaf pages rank without a single link, and internal or external links. Basically, we somehow found those pages and we rank them because they are relevant. So that's one thing. Got it. Second thing is that links are not everything. Google is smart enough. Well, that's actually the same thing. Links are not everything. Anyway, Google is smart enough to learn from even mentions. Like, for example, if, let's say, CNN writes an article about new theory, about the podcast, and they don't link back to you, they just mention new theory on the article, and they mention podcast on the article, and they have a few examples. From there, we can already learn that new theory is about podcasts. You will not get PageRank flowing towards you from that article, but we will learn something from that article about new theory. That's also important.
I'm excited. I'm gonna jump out of my chair. I argue with people that with like Rank Brain and all the AI and all that fun stuff and those fancy names, they say no. You didn't give me your link. go screw yourself, Tom. And I'm like, no, it'll facilitate branded searches, which will facilitate better organic. And I know, I guess you could kind of somewhat commit to that's okay because you did, or at least said it's okay, right? Somewhat. And I feel vindicated on that. So keep going. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. Keep going.
And lastly, or finally, I do believe that you can build links in a white hat manner, which means that, let's say, on whatever social network, not social network because they usually, well, no, actually, that's good. Let's say on whatever social network or Q&A site, someone asks a question that you can answer and for which you have content for. Okay. What you can do is answer the question on the Q&A site, perhaps in an abbreviated way, and then add a sentence if the Q&A site's policies allow that. Add a sentence saying that, and I also wrote more about this here on this site, and then you link there. That can be helpful for the user for whom you posted that answer.
Yeah.
It is relevant, so it's not spammy. And unless you start playing with the anchors or the anchor text, even for Google, I can't imagine to be, or for the web spam team, I can't imagine to be spammy, because you did help that user on the page. All you did was linking out to more information.
Got it. Yeah, and you're saying, hey, check this out, and whether they check it out or not is one thing, but also it shows you that you're not, if I was looking to game the system, I want to keep them on my page and get them to convert. But if you're willing to offer outbound links, that's reasonable to anybody that it's legitimate. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I got so many questions for you, but I don't want to make it all about search. I promise. Now, social media. Do signals matter? Yes or no? Social signals, do they matter? Yes or no? I want to see what you say.
I know that people will not believe me, but this is not a yes and no.
I know it's not. That's why I try to pitch it.
It can't be a yes and no answer.
Yeah.
And that's because if I say yes, then people will start saying that social factors or social signals factor into ranking, which is not true.
Okay.
But the answer is yes, in the way that social networks are simply a website that has many users and where users can interact with each other. So if you link out, for example, or mention your site in posts, or you link to your site in some way, in a contextual quality way, then it will matter.
Okay. Because people will look at it, they'll find it in a sense organically, and if they visit the site and has good IUX, they're on the page for 3 minutes versus 2 minutes, and the bounce rate is low, and some of the technical stuff is done. It kind of gives you people.
You are going to a territory that is much debated among SEOs.
Yeah.
This bounce rate theory was debated to hell by SEOs, and it's not something that I would want to engage again on.
Okay. Now, all right, that's fair. We're kind of get to it type thing. So, but we can. Okay. So let's say.
Let me finish it.
Yeah. Sorry.
I don't want to engage on, because the answer that I would give is exactly the same answer that I gave the past 5 years to this question. Basically, the social networks are not treated any differently from a normal website, and that's it. Social signals. Those who say that social signals matter, they don't know what they are saying. Honestly,
Wow.
they don't.
Okay. I like the definitive statement, and that shows also the progression of Google's communications, or at least your communication in terms of saying, hey, here's what matters, here's what doesn't. Now, one other quick question is, if I had 10 links, right, and option one is there are 10 do follow links from various sources, so some low, some high, right? Or I could have 5 no follow and 5 do follow links from those similar various sources. Which would you pick and why? Or does it? Yeah, because I have a thought on that, but you're the master. But I want, or I can give you my answer and you can comment. I'll give you what you prefer.
Okay. That sounds better.
I believe that do follow and no follow, in my opinion, doesn't matter, and I can be totally wrong. I'll tell you why. Because if CNN or New York Post does an article on this podcast and they're reputable sources, just because it's do follow or no follow, Google's going to give it the same amount of weight. Now, conversely, if you have all do follow links and all no follow, and you're to me any extreme looks suspicious. So number one, to alleviate any suspicious activity, you want it mixed up. Number two, I don't know if I say this right, genuinity, being genuine, and you're gonna get some, how do I say this? You're gonna get some media links, and by getting media links, they don't want to give the juice away, so they're gonna make it no follow. So, but I still think it has importance, not greater importance, just importance. And then lastly, in terms of do follow, the same token, if all of a sudden everybody gives away their juice, then it's meaningless. So for me, I would actually rather have a mixed profile of no follow and do follow. And as a kind of a quasi SEO guy, I celebrate either link. So I would like for your comments on that.
That makes perfect sense in my opinion. Okay. If you can, well, obviously, if I can choose between 10 follow links and 10 no follow links, and I know that the sources are quality sites, then obviously I would choose the follow links.
Of course,
just because they would pass on some page rank.
Yeah.
But no follow links can also be helpful. Basically, they give us context on they allow us to learn more about the site, and that's also helpful. And then your argument that a mix of follow and no follow links, that makes perfect sense to me.
Okay. So one last question on search, and I want to learn a little bit more about you as a person. Right now, what's funny, and you might appreciate this. I can just imagine being you and rolling your eyes. They say these statements, and it's like, duh. Like right now, I heard a guy say, well, right now it's about relevancy and authority. Well, when wasn't it? But relevancy and authority is the hot topic, which I don't get, but okay. And what does that mean exactly, and how can you build relevancy and authority in your space?
What's the question? How you build it?
How do you build relevancy and authority in your space?
I think I already answered this.
Okay.
Although not directly.
Yeah.
Basically, the relevancy comes from on-page and off-page signals. Basically, the links, the mentions, your own content, where your content is linked from your own site, all those contribute to relevancy. Or if you are, for example, India-based or based in India, then which geographic location your links come from? It's more likely that your links should come from India than from Kamchatka or whatever.
True.
So that might also matter. authority. It's weird because I don't think we talk much about authority, and people picked up authority from Moses' domain authority, and then we kind of just went with it. That's much harder to build, but essentially it's. I believe that it's just brand building, making sure that people recognize you as someone who can write a decent review about the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a painting of the Eiffel Tower in front of me, so that's why I said Eiffel Tower. Basically, I think it boils down to people trusting your content.
Okay.
Basically knowing that you are not talking out of your ass, but you actually know what you're saying.
Got it. All right. Now, one last question, because I promise we'll get to you. What's one thing that people just got to fucking stop doing? Like, if if somehow I was able to get this to the ear of every person practicing SEO, what's the one thing you could emphatically say, stop doing now, that's just continuing to be done as a practice, that just would make your life a lot easier, and just stop it now? What would that be, and why? I know there's many, but what's one thing?
That's a great question.
Cool.
What to choose? Wow, that's a hard question, actually. I would ask sites to limit the number of ad networks that they use.
Okay.
Because if you go to almost any big news site, and you load the site or some of the leaf pages or article pages on your mobile phone, it will take an eternity to load that site. And in the vast majority of the cases, it's because there are sometimes hundreds of different calls, HTTP calls, to different ad networks, pull in different beacons and different ads and different whatevers. I don't even know what. And again, from hundreds of places sometimes. That slows down the page a lot. And your users suffer. And if you want to convert somehow those users, your conversion, because of the slow page load, your conversions will also suffer. So what I realized that sites need to pay for the traffic, for the servers, for the authors, for whatever. But that doesn't mean that you have to have 100 different calls to different ad networks. It should be possible to have just one ad network, and then somehow, I'm not an advertising expert, so I might be talking out of my ass. But it should be possible to have one ad network that basically displays all the ads and all the beacons that you need for monetizing your site.
Well, it goes
that's my wish.
But it goes towards what you're saying. Like, if you build great content, you'll get traffic, and if you get traffic, you can make the money up. Now AdSense, frankly, is not the biggest money maker, but you can make money that way, or offer private advertising and throw in your own banner ads, which are frankly more profitable. All right. So who is Gary as a person? So you shut down for the day. Do you grab a cigar? I know you do some photography. Do you drink espresso in the corner? Do you enjoy a glass of wine? Who are you as a person, and what do you do for fun?
That's also a loaded question.
Yeah.
I do many things. I started to work more and more on conservation and on environmental efforts. Because I'm a diver. I'm a scuba diver. also a assistant instructor for PADI, one of the dive organizations.
Nice.
And I've been diving for a few years now, and because every year I spend pretty much weeks underwater, and I see how the oceans are changing. One of my favorite dive sites is in Zanzibar, Tanzania, and I clearly remember the first time I was there, perhaps 5 years ago. It was full of life. It was big school of fish. We saw even sharks, which is not that common in that area. We saw big fish. Nowadays, it's pretty much a ghost town. The coral is bleached. The coral, it's not actually bleached. It's dead. The fish are gone because the coral is dead.
Okay.
There are no big fish. And that was just in 5 years, and it affected a whole archipelago.
Oh, wow.
And the same thing is happening. We know that the same thing is happening in Australia, on the Great Barrier Reef. Pretty much everywhere I go. I just came back from Honduras, Roatan, a couple of weeks ago, and that also became a ghost town underwater. There's no fish.
Okay.
And that's basically what I'm trying to change by taking pictures of these things, by talking about these things to different people who can help me make a difference there.
And what would you be doing if you weren't at Google? Would it be that? Like, spend more time to that? What would you do?
My biggest dream, or my big dream, is to work on something similar.
Okay.
I got enough compliments for my pictures that I took underwater, that I started to believe that they not completely suck. And if they don't completely suck, then I could do more conservation work, diving more, documenting more changes. Basically, I'm a journalist. I want to tell people things.
Yeah.
And now that my photography skills are also better, I could perhaps work for organizations that focus on this. I'm not thinking net geo because I'm not that caliber, but there are definitely organizations that I could help.
Nice. And best day of your life?
Wow, that is again a very hard question. Best day of my life. That would be a trip that we did with my father. It's not one day, it's actually a week.
Okay.
And basically we ran away from everything and we went up in the mountains and we were living there for 1 week or so, just taking care of bees. And the farmers from around, they all came and brought us food. And I was drinking fresh milk right from the source. And I think that was the coolest experience I had.
Nice. Okay, what was the worst day of your life?
I will not talk about that.
Okay, good.
My worst day of my life involves the death of my father.
Sorry to
And
hear that.
that's not something I like to talk about.
No, I'm sorry to hear that. I lost my father at 17, so
okay.
so I sorry to hear that, Gary. All right, so how can we find you? And now, before how can we find you? Let's finish on a positive note. What is your philosophy in life and in business? If I don't like to pigeonhole. Well, if you had a phrase on your tombstone, that's kind of a generic question. But give me what's your true philosophy on life and business, and I would love for you to share that as a conclusion.
So my philosophy is do what you like to do.
Okay.
I strongly believe that people can achieve great things if they focus on the thing that they love to do. If they have to sit in an office 24/7, doing something that they don't like, they will not produce good things anyway. They should perhaps quit and find something that they truly like, and for what they would sit in an office 24/7.
Good point. Good point. And I know it's something overlooked, and it sounds obvious, but the truth is, it's not about just not doing what doing what you love. But if you do something you don't love, you're just not going to be great at it. And if you're going to be shitty at something,
Exactly.
why do it at all?
Exactly.
So Gary, how can we find you?
Well, I would say I'm on Twitter, but I'm not.
I saw that. If you share why or any particular reason why.
Yeah, sure. I just got annoyed with something, and basically, I went to Twitter to help people, but way too often my words were taken out of context. Twitter is not a great way to answer questions because they raise the character limit, but still.